That's good. Soft sticks.
So do we bring it down? Okay. Yeah.
Here?
Yep.
Right, Finding the Funk, D'Angelo, take one.
Excellent.
Right.
So, first question, and first thank you for doing this.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, man.
If I said, if you landed from another planet, so you come down and they said, what is funk? How would you describe funk to someone who'd never heard of it before?
Okay. Funk, the best way I can describe it to me, all right, I remember George Clinton saying something like this. He said, rock and roll is like the blues sped up. It's like a faster version of the blues. So funk is kind of like, it's not as slow as the blues, so it's right in the middle, you know. But I think the whole concept to me and what funk really means to me is it's black rock and roll. It's when George said we have returned to reclaim the pyramids, that's what that represents to me. You know, like, you know, I don't know, it's like we're showing you and we're coming to reclaim what's ours, and this is ours. Rhythm and blues, what you call rock and roll, this is our music. You know, it's not just about, you know, no disrespect, but, you know, white boys playing guitars. It's not what, you know, we kind of invented this. So, and it's just like a reclaiming of that, you know.
If someone had to say to you, if the same person comes to you, okay, what should I listen to? What should I be, if I want to understand what funk is, what should I be listening to?
I would say the first thing is to get them well abreast with James Brown, you know, preferably like late 60s, right before the mutiny happened with Maceo and them, and then when Bootsy came and he had the new JBs, that I would tell him to listen to Band of Gypsies album, Jimi Hendrix, and Sly and the Family Stone. You know.
Tell me about why Band of Gypsies.
To me, that was the main foundation or construct as far as spacing it out. You know what I mean? Because to me, the main foundation was laid down by James Brown, yeah, hands down to me. You know, but Jimmy.
Agree with you. A lot of people don't. They have this idea of Hendrix just from Burning Guitar and, you know, Hey Joe, but he was deeply a blues musician.
Yes.
And an R&B musician.
Oh yes, yes. First and foremost, and like to me, he's a blues man. To me, he's just like blues man out of space, from outer space. You know, it's as primitive as it is, and it's as futuristic as it can be at the same time. So yeah, man. You know.
Yeah, one of the interesting things that is that, you know, when I was talking to like the people about the How Players and Sugarfoot, and a lot of what you get out of when you listen to all those bands is that funk has this, it's R&B, but it's also blues.
Yes.
In a way that only people appreciate. A lot of those bands, all those Midwestern bands, they're all just country boys. Their family stopped in, you know, Dayton.
Dayton, that's right.
You know.
Yes.
Are you really familiar with, you know, how many bands came out of Dayton?
I wasn't until I saw that piece on Ohio Players, and then I was like, wow, that's right. You know, you got Zap, Ohio Players, of course, so many. Slave. Wow, it's crazy.
So, I want you to talk about, I mean, you have a lot of influences in your music, but what is funk, how does funk play a part in your, how did it play a part in your development? What's the first time you recognized funk as a different thing from, let's say, gospel or jazz or whatever?
Well, the first one to kind of like be the catalyst to kind of like point the way was Prince to me. That was it for me. And I was so young when say Dirty Mind came out, like, to me that was the shift. You know, that's when he kind of put his flag in the ground. And I was 7 years old. So I was so young, but my brain was so open for what it was. But I mean, that was the catalyst, because everything that I guess would kind of influenced him, or that I learned influenced him, that's what I went to go seek after. So, I went and aggressively sought after James Brown, or George Clinton in Parliament-Funkadelic. I could tell that he was influenced by Ohio players. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, he kind of pointed me in the direction to hear all that. And I don't know, I guess during like the late 80s, early 90s, when sampling became such a big thing, and it was about, crate digging in the crates and getting samples and finding new breaks and what have you. And I started listening to things like Band of Gypsies that sounded like, I couldn't tell whether if it was made back then or if it was made now, because the same beat, it sounded like Premier. You know what I'm saying? Like Buddy Miles, the way he was hitting the drums sounded like Premier to me. Or the Meters. When I first heard the Meters, I was like, that shit sound like it was made just now. Sound like Marley Marl or something. So I guess that was the thing, because I started recognizing these common threads that kind of put all these things together. Hip hop, music that was being made back then, like the Meters and Band of Gypsies or what have you. So it's interesting because I heard a tape just recently of when James first got Bootsy and Catfish and them from King Studios or whatever, and they were like opening up. They were opening up for the real James Brown band, and so they just did like an instrumental set. So they was doing Jimmy, they was doing Power of Love, they were playing the Meters. You know what I'm saying? It's Bootsy and them like rocking. So it all makes sense. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of coming from the same tree.
Yeah, it's amazing because Bootsy was it's almost like a generational thing.
Mm-hmm.
That he was coming from all of that, what was rock or progressive funk, and James was coming from the other side,
mm-hmm.
coming to funk, but they were coming from different places.
Right.
And they met in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny because I think the reason it was short-lived, because they weren't together that long.
Yes.
Was that they were going in different directions at the same time.
That's
and they
right.
met, and then they kept going.
That's right. That's right.
Talk a bit more about Prince in terms of funk, because it's interesting. Some people I've talked to were like, Prince marketed himself when he first came out, like, the time was, funk is dead.
Right.
And then the time kind of became the new kind of funk band.
Right. So there was no horns,
Right.
and they were using the synthesizers in the same capacity as, say, a funk band would use the horn section. Right.
And they got rid of, also they got rid of the closing.
So was it like that? The time was like funk is dead?
That was one of the ads. Do you remember that, Alan?
Oh, Alan.
Oh.
No.
Because it was almost like you kill the old to get to, you have to kill the old to get to new. Because when they came out, they dressed differently. They came
Yes.
back to Prince wore what he wore, but the time was suit and tie.
Right.
It was like gangster
Mm-hmm.
thing.
And they had these, I don't know, new romantic, new wave type
Right.
things woven in with it. But to me, which is very funky, because, all right, Sly and the Family Stone.
Because, you look at Human League, Jimmy and Terry ended up producing them.
Right.
Because they were actually, again, it's interesting, sometimes you have this thing where people come from two different places, but they meet in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was quite curious too, because now when you first came out, there was this whole neo-soul phrase.
Mm. Yes.
Did you ever, I mean, it's a slight digression, but did you ever embrace that? What did you think of that phrase?
I never embraced it, never.
Okay.
Because first of all, because when I first came out, and
Right.
people would ask me, and this is when, R&B was, the word,
Right.
use R&B, not even rhythm and blues, but R&B.
Right.
And, or New Jack Swing was dying,
right,
was fizzling out. So when I first came out, everyone would ask me, so what do you do? And I would say soul.
Right.
I would say soul music. Not neo soul, but soul. you know. And I was like, yo, soul, it's like either you got it or you don't. It's not, how can it be? And I hear you with the whole today's generation of it, but to me that's separate too. And also, it puts us in the box. It puts us right back in the box that we were trying to get out of in the first place. So I never dug it.
Well, it's interesting too when you look at this journey of because I'm really on the funk tip. Is well, I was talking to Stuart Masseyman, you know, about, and he was saying like, you know, he and Sade came out of a funk band, and they've never have. While they don't make funk records, there's always funk elements. A lot of what he does on guitar, his wah wah thing, comes right out of Wah Wah Watson. It's also interesting that it seems like during that period, funk had morphed. I mean, you had funky tracks, but you didn't do necessarily what we call in the mind is organic funk.
Right. Okay, you're talking about...
Yeah.
Okay, yes. And I think that, you know what I'm saying, so I think as each thing progresses, that's how it's breaking down to get more elemental. You know what I'm saying?
Voodoo is more of a funk album than the first one.
Yes, it is. Horn section,
right.
We did a lot of it, one take, you know. Roy Hargrove put some crazy arrangements down, like kind of reminiscent of Fred Wesley and with funk on Parliament. So yeah, definitely.
Also, when you went on tour, as I remember that tour, compared to what you did with Brown Sugar, was much more of a funk tour from what I remember of it.
Yes, sir.
So it's interesting that did you feel? I mean, one of the things that's come up now, and I've seen your show now, and it's a lot of direction you're going in now, is it's a question that, like, I've been interviewing people. There's like there used to be a million funk bands or just black bands.
Right.
There's like the Roots. Why do you think that particular strain in the DNA of black music is it gone, or is it just moved on to another place? What do you think funk is right now in terms of the black community?
I think awareness is the big thing. I think most people really don't even really understand what it is, you know, in the black, you know, especially young black kids, you know what I'm saying? But you'd be surprised too, because a lot of, and out of funk, they hear, you know, Funky Worm, synthesizer, and they're thinking about, you know, like Roger Troutman and Zapp type things. But to me, funk, that's like the later incarnations of it. Like, to me, the essence of real funk is not about all that bells and whistles and all that. It's really about black rock and roll, you know? Like, to me, a good precursor to what funk would be about, and a lot of people sleep on this, is Otis Redding. You know, because that shit was hard driving rhythm and blues. Major chords, sharp angles, really piercing horn lines, and he was just such a hard driving vocalist. That's precursor to the funk.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's funny, 'cause I want to ask you about vocals. I mean, I'm glad you brought up Otis. There's a sound. I'm going to feed me, yow, ow, whatever.
Yeah. Yow. Yeah. All that. Okay, I'm glad you touched on that. Okay, that is, okay, if we're going to pin it down to one person who's the godfather of all of that, and where the funk singing comes from, Ray Charles. It's Ray Charles, because Sly is, to me, the one who really just like owned it, and like, so the Sugarfoots and the Larry Blackmans and all of those guys that would come after, they were biting really off of Sly, and Sly was really biting off of Ray Charles. Sly was like Ray Charles on acid. So
That's a great description, and when you say that, it's natural.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that is one of the from Lionel Richie. Lionel Richie was yowing his ass off.
Yeah, the early Commodore shit. Yeah, hell yeah.
So you think, oh, that's that Ray Charles sound? That's nice. Yeah, I got to process that. I like that. I want to give you a couple of records.
Okay.
Just get some. Tell me what this reminds you of, or any thoughts. Should I hold it up for the camera?
My God, yeah. Earth, Wind, and Fire. See, and just the whole, just this here, and everyone's got their eyes closed, and they're in this crazy shit, and Maurice in the middle. It's just mystical, man. And they're playing on this mysticism, and it's just awesome. This is awesome, man.
I mean, what do you think musically? What did Earth, Wind and Fire do that was different than, let's say, what Parliament did, or some of the other bands? How would you?
It's funny. I like. And it's funny because I was thinking about this too. I talk about this all the time. Like,
Just something right here. Okay. Greg Rico, he doesn't get a. He's come up a lot. People, Mike D. Of the Beasties was raving about Greg.
yes,
He's underappreciated.
he is. He is. He's underrated, but you can't deny it. And just the hip hop samples alone, that's him playing that shit. And like, you always hear about Clyde Stubblefield. You always hear about Jerome Bigfoot Bradley, but yeah, Greg Rico was awesome. And just him and Larry Graham together, just that pocket that they had, man, it was crazy. Crazy.
One more. I thought I'd bring in.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. Well, see, this is so here we go. We talking about the '80s again. So we talking about the cats who were still holding the torch for something that was kind of trying to. It looked like they were trying to. The technology was changing and whatever. So these guys were definitely holding the torch. Yeah.
Hey, talk a little bit about because I think that's interesting. One of the key storylines in this is, funk morphed, and the technology, the people who were doing funk embraced it. And we're going back to the clavinet,
Yeah.
and because that had nothing to do with funk. The people who made it had no idea that it would end up in these bands. So,
Right.
when the drum machines came in. I mean, you're absorbing all of this.
Yes.
Did you feel like there was a loss of funk, or did it just change because people adapted?
I think that it just. Yeah, I think it always happens, right? When something gets really, really popular, and then you get. At some point, it starts to just get homogenized. And I think that just naturally that's what started to happen. And the synthesizers didn't hurt it. The technology didn't hurt it per se. I just think that it just got homogenized because of, not to take anything away from, any good, great groups in the 80s, but, like the Midnight Stars, you know what I mean? And like, say the Lakesides, which are good bands, but they weren't pushing the envelope like these guys were. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I don't know. You had Crusaders, but by that point, the whole thing started to change. So, okay, so then you got Rick James with the punk funk, and then you got Prince, who was taking his shit another way. So I don't know. It's the same tradition, but they just got different colors and different textures in it.
It's interesting you mentioned Midnight Store because there's this a lot of the LA funk aside from War, put them in their own box, was much more arranged and smoothed out. The Brothers Johnson and Lakeside, Midnight Star.
See, I didn't even know they were from LA. Okay.
Well, which one?
Midnight Star.
I mean, they're from. They might be from the Midwest too. A lot of those bands moved, and then Earth and the Fire were they were the best of the smoothed out, and the most complicated.
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Yeah, by far.
Yeah, but they were the best, to me, the best hybrid. Especially during early Charles Stephanie doing all the arrangements. Shit was killer.
Oh man, that's the way the world.
Yes, that's the way the world. Open our eyes. And all in all, my God, it's just crazy.
So they were and also they had the harmonies.
Yes.
The two best shows are the best shows I've ever seen, probably musically, Earth and Fire at Madison Square Garden.
What year? What year?
I saw they played every year. I mean they would come every year. That's the way the world.
That's the way the world. All
Spirit. all in all, they came every year, and it would be
God damn.
crazy. You know, they had the Doug Henning things where they would be on one side of the stage, disappear, the drums would spin around, and then you know, they were special because they also were they were African.
Yes. Yeah.
And they had the whole kalimba and the rhythms they were doing. You know, one of the biggest records that got sampled in New York in the early days of hip hop was da 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 da.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You know
Yeah.
that. So no one was doing that at that time. They fused it all. Eventually, like you said, in the '80s, everyone just started writing pop songs.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Kool and the Gang.
Another one. There you go. See, oh God, and I mentioned old Kool and the Gang to people. They don't even know what I'm talking about. They have no clue. They think of Kool and the Gang. They think of Celebration and Joanna. They know nothing about who's gonna take the weight. You know, they know nothing about that. So
Hollywood Swinging. Yeah.
Hollywood Swinging, Jungle Boogie.
So let's talk a little bit more about where now. Here we are in 21st century. You're on tour now. You know, you're going to be touring, God willing, for the next year.
Yeah.
How do you see audiences? Because one of the things that we've been seeing is that there's a lot of white funk bands.
Yeah.
I mean, and a lot of them are jam bands or jam bands that have funk. I had no idea how much Fish plays funk. And, you know, a lot of these bands that people, Galactic out of New Orleans, were great.
Wow.
Lettuce, which is a group out of New York, Soul Live.
Damn.
Do you find as you're going out on the road, do you see a difference between? It seems like a lot of the white. You play Bonnaroo.
Yes.
Talk about with that crowd. That's the whitest, youngest, malest crowd.
Yeah.
They're in the funk.
Yes. And to me, that's the modern day, you know, I guess Woodstock or crowd or what have you, the hippies,
Right.
the hip black cats and the hip white young generation. But I think just overall, and it's kind of always been like that, right? We're like, you know, things that we as black folk, we kind of just throw away and we're off to the next thing. White people always gravitate to it. They did it with the blues, you know, and the Rolling Stones and them, and all those British invasion, whatever. They went and really dug into the blues when we was done with it, you know. So I think it's the kind of same thing going on with the funk, you know what I mean?
Now, for you going forward, is that a challenge to you? I mean, do you feel like? I mean, you relate to the audience. I mean, you have a audience that's a soul audience or R&B audience. You have an audience that's a sort of a white funk audience, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the challenge now to find a balance to bring those groups together?
I think the challenge is more to get people to not focus so much on whether the song has been on the radio or how much radio play it's getting. You know what I'm saying? I think that's the challenge. But I love it, you know? I'm starting to see more white people come to the shows, and it's like, okay, you know, this, you know, it looks like it's because everyone talks about it too. Like this is like the iPod generation, what have you. So it's just there's less separation between all these different genres of music, you know. So I think that when you see more white people coming to the concerts, it's definitely like manifestation of that, you know, proof of that, you know.
Yeah, one of the things that's interesting too, I talked about your band, was that, you know, just that you find a lot of one of the things we found is that we seeing live bands.
Mm-hmm.
There's just very few black live bands.
Yes.
Is it partly because there's no role models, so it's easy to just make, you know, if there's no role models, why should I put a band together? No one's getting a deal.
You know, and I gotta say, it's not because there's not a lot of young black musicians, young great, you know, musicians out there. I just think that we kind of caught up in a vicious cycle, a perpetual cycle, and it's. I blame a lot of it on the industry, man, and what the gatekeepers and some of these record execs who they don't want to spend. It costs money to have a band that plays, you know, and you gotta get studio time. Like now, you know, you get all these groups, you know what I'm saying, that's doing so-called hip hop or rap music right now, and yeah, and you know, you can record your album in your crib on the Pro Tools. You know, you don't have to go into the studio. You know, you don't have to pay for a band to have hotel rooms on tour. You know, you get track dates. You don't have to pay for it to bring instruments on the. So, I think I don't know, man. I think that it's gonna have to take. It's gonna have to come full circle. And it's gonna have to take something that's gonna break through and be successful commercially before these record execs start, you know, trying to spend a little money on this shit.
It's interesting. You're saying so that it makes black music easily marketable, but you don't have to spend as much to invest in it.
There you go. That's right. I mean, we just gotta break that cycle. The artists have always had the power to do that, and we've done it in the past. So we just gotta do it again.
So the young black musicians are there. But they're in the church.
They're in the church. They got chops. They playing jazz. They know who Charlie Parker is. I mean, you know, there's some young bad cats out there, young, like 18, 19. They're on the YouTube. They're studying. I mean, they're good, you know. And a lot of people just think that, you know, this is young black kids don't know shit about music, don't know shit about instruments or playing guitar or what have you, you know. And it's not the case. It really isn't. I just don't think that the powers that be are letting that shit come through, you know. Why? I don't know. But I tell you what, it gives us a lot of power, you know. Earth, Wind, and Fire, the Mothers, that shit gave us a lot of power and awareness. Music does that. We can dictate the culture. We can teach culture.
I mean, no, it's interesting that, I mean, because it feels like, Bernie Worrell made a really good point to us. He was saying that, yes, you can get a computer and you can play E, and you can, but you don't know, if you don't know theory, you don't know about E sharp, E flat. You don't know all the possibilities around that note. And I think when you listen to the radio, what young black music is very simple.
Yes.
And there's no, you know, exception maybe Kanye was on the radio, but, you know, there's not a lot of people, the records are like, and.
It's ridiculous. I never would have thought that it would have got to this point. It's because everyone always said that, you know, the disco era was the worst. I would love to listen to some of that shit compared to, you know, what they put down there. It's ridiculous. It's crazy. It's crazy.
So tell me, how do you feel? I mean, we'll wrap up with this. I mean, going forward, you're a musician who's steeped in all the tradition. You know the heritage.
Yes. Yes.
What is your goal going forward as a musician in terms of this tradition of funk and so forth?
Hold the torch. You know what I'm saying? And teach the youth.
Can we ask you to play just a little something on guitar? Just,
Wow. Okay.
just a little. Play one of your. Sorry. Oh, sure.
Okay.
Whatever your favorite funk riff is.
Let me see.
From whatever your favorite. Of one of your songs, even.
Oh.
You know, we can go there.
I'll play
Because I know you've been. This is something I know you study. Alan was telling me been studying this the last few years really hard. Yeah, Jesse Johnson is the teacher. It's not bad.
Yes, this is actually his guitar. Well, he gave it to me, but
Oh, no, it looked like one of his suits from one of those.
that's right. Yeah.
Oh God.
He was actually holding it.
Iron Cream Castle.
Well, it's probably during that period. He's definitely holding this guitar on the Shockadelic album.
Right.
So yeah. Let me see.
Hello, Alan. We're at the music section.
Okay. wanna go back and get more focused up. Get some more focused up. I wanna go back and get more focused up. Get some more focused up. Yeah.
Beautiful.
All right.
Beautiful. Let me see. What is there any last question for the road? Oh, favorite funk album. Favorite funk album.
God damn! What? No. Oh,
Come
no.
on, man.
What? Oh shit!
The one you have to have on a desert island.
God damn it!
When you're locked in that desert island, baby, what's the album you got to have?
Parade. Prince and the Revolution. Parade. I'm sorry. That's it. Damn! Look, I'm sorry, man. I know, but that's the one. That's the one. Parade.
Okay.
Parade.
All right.
Eric loves you.
Okay. How about this? How about this? One more hard one.
Okay.
Let's go with our friend just landed from Mars. Okay, what's the record he should listen to that says, okay, this is funk. Just listen to this and you get it.
Okay. There's a riot going on. Yep. Slide of Family Stone. Yeah.
You know, funny that of all the records, that of all the mini records, that comes up of all the time.
Yeah.
From across the board, that seems to be one of the definitive records for
That's it.
everybody. No matter all the fun stuff he did before.
That's the one. I was getting ready to say Stan, but I was like, nah. Yeah.
There's also interesting like
Right.
Mike D, all the hip hop people. I didn't realize until we interviewed Mike D how much of Paul's Boutique is there's a riot going on.
Wow.
Half the samples on that thing, and he went into a whole thing about that album.
Damn.
So there's something about that particular. When we interviewed Sly, we asked him about Family Affair, and I'm going to fuck up the story, but the way he basically said like, there were these two sisters downstairs. They were always arguing. I ended up marrying one of them. That's another story. I went upstairs, and that's why I wrote the song. It's about and the way he said I married the other woman was just so fucking funny. And then he goes, you know what I did on our honeymoon night? I went to the studio. That didn't go over too well. So he was incredibly funny in this really weird way. So all the wit and all of the stuff that you know is there, it pops out. It's in there, It's just like, it's just buried in there, kind of. But it's there.
Wow.
It's there. Well, man, this was amazing. I hope you enjoyed this.
I did. I had fun, man. This is
Your first
awesome.
TV interview in how long?
I can't remember.
Well, it's good. You break you in. We broke you in, baby. We broke you in.
Thank you, sir.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, man.
That's great stuff. You guys ready? Room tone?
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
D'Angelo room tone. All right, thank you.
That Boosie gave me this ring.
Oh yeah, he's got tons of.
I know. He got him on every finger.
Oh yeah.